Hey everybody, this is yours truly, Gazala Jabeen, your number one marketing machine on the scene. But what a scene have I got for you, guys and girls that listen into my crazy chats from all over the world. I mean, I go from this side of the world to that side of the world, and now I'm going to outside of this world because the actual introduction I've got for you on this really special little program that we're going to be rolling out, but also just the introduction to it. I have an incredible guest with me here today. He is the legendary Mr. David Charles Rowan. And he's actually, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's actually an astrologer with a difference. And I say that quite confidently because I've been at the receiving end of his work. He's actually got a master's in science in psychosocial studies. He's also got a master of arts in cultural astronomy and astrology. And I had the very good fortune in my recent trip down to Stonehenge. And the reason I wanted to do this particular trip was that I knew there was an education coming to it as well. And to be able to visit a place is one thing and appreciate it, but to know about its history and the meaning behind it takes you to the whole place where the value is exceeding the expectations of what you're going to do. And I was blown away with the information that made that place more magical than ever. And now I've come away and the place has left that magical mark in my head from it, that if I go with anybody, I know little bits here and a little bits there. I got to the point where I was intrigued to know more about this gentleman and his work, so I clicked on to find out a bit more about him. Then I realized he actually educates so many people from his background and of everything for over 25 years plus of his experience and his expertise in this field of work. I just was like, my folks need to know about this man. So David Rowan,
Hello.
first of all, welcome to my little intro here and to my audience as well.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I would like very much for people that are listening, people that have got the interest in this world of astrology, questioning what astronomy is, what astrology is, the spiritual space, the earth we live in, the solar system above us, and all the other things that go on. But you've got quite a few courses coming off, and if we can just have a little peekaboo into one of them. I know that we've got a short window because this is quite an in-depth course, but it's called Introducing the Dynamics of Astrology. So David, can you tell us one brief about your background, because I need people to kind of know how you came about this, and then we'll look into the course. So fire away.
Okay, very briefly, I started to explore the nature of the human condition and what we're about at a very early age. I was reading Freud when I was 13. I dismissed it when I was 13 and a half. And I carried on searching and searching, and I found this language called astrology. Wrestled with it for about 7 years, and then it started to kind of make sense. And as it started to make sense, I began talking about it more and more. People kept asking the same questions all the time. So I thought, well, rather than answer each question individually, I'll get people into one room and answer them all at once. And that began my life as a teacher. And I've been doing that since 1991. So this is the 30th anniversary of me teaching astrology. But the intro course that I've been doing online for many, many years has kind of three purposes to it. One is it introduces people to the breadth of astrology. So in the course, there are sections where we look at esoteric philosophy, like past life regression, for example, notions of fate and free will. Are we puppets living out a script written by some god who watches soap operas? Or do we have existential free will? If we have free will, astrology becomes a straitjacket. If we're puppets living out a divine script, then astrology is useless because we can't change anything. So where does astrology fit in between those two things? We need to discuss that. With an astrological birth chart, you can get insights into a person's unconscious and the different dynamics of the unconscious. So working memory, accessible memory, the collective unconscious, repressed issues, for example. So we talk about the basic principles of psychology in this as well. Now, my MSc in psychosocial studies about 10 years ago introduced me to a field called affective neuroscience, which is the neuroscience of emotion. So you can look at the brain from a cognitive perspective and look at it as an electrical system, but you can also look at it as a biochemical system as well. So the things I've found, in fact, all these books behind me that you see here, The last 10 years, the only books I really buy are interpersonal neurobiology and neuroscience, and I read that stuff for leisure. You know? So I find that information sprinkles itself into everything I do. As well as looking at astrology, like charts. We talk about the history of astrology, but we also look at history through the lens of astrology. Is it possible to read history, large epochs of time and collective changes in the consciousness of man using this tool? Because if it is, then that means you can look forwards. And that becomes interesting.
Wow.
There are parts of an astrological birth chart that suggest things from past lives or dynamics from past lives that we may carry over into this life. So we have to have a discussion about that. What is a past life? What is reincarnation? What is a soul? What do we mean by life? And what happens after life is done? So there's a lot of philosophy backed into it. Up until class number 12, it's an 18-week course.
Okay.
So once we get up to class number 12, then it changes and we begin to look at our own personal astrological charts.
Oh, wow.
So everyone who signs up for the course gets, their birth chart calculated for free.
Wow.
There's also a chart calculation service as well. So if someone's got children or a partner, they can just send me their details and I'll give them their birth chart as well.
Wow.
So that when we're exploring the different parts of an astrological chart, if you've got your children's chart next to you, for example, we might be discussing, the moon in a certain part of the chart, and one of your children might have that placement. So then what we say about that resonates with something that you might find in your child. It's not a reading, but it's a glimmer.
Yes.
It's a glance.
Wow.
Yes. So
Fascinating insights just even on that little clip but I do know that because because I know the depth of this course, there's so much covered in it, David, and that's what excited me to learn more, because that is one of the big issues around the world, is not understanding people, not understanding the situations around us and the change that's happening. So tell us a little bit more about what else.
Yeah, well, you can see this birth chart behind you. It looks very technical.
Yes.
Right. There is no mathematics involved in this. None.
Oh, right. That's good. I'm not good at math.
And that's because modern astrologers will use computers to do that. So when I started, you had to calculate by hand. You don't need to do that now. But calculating the birth chart is the easy bit. The hard part is reading it, getting meaning from it. So I like to do everything from the ground up. And I tend to teach everything as a narrative, as a story, which you found on the Stonehenge tour.
Yeah.
It began in one place and it ended 20 miles somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I teach astrology right from the absolute very beginning. One of the first things I do on the first day is to draw a symbol that looks like that. And then I ask everybody, what does that mean? What is that? And people give a variety of answers. And then I let people know, did you know that the cross is older than Christianity? And if the cross is older than Christianity, what did it mean in the minds of people before Christ? And then we spend about an hour exploring that symbol.
Wow.
And you find that symbol is inside the structure of an astrological chart. So, and that's the basis. So there was one lady, I think in 2012, an American lady wrote some feedback after an intro course. And I didn't know this, but she said in her testimony that she'd been reading and studying astrology for 35 years. And she said, but this is a quote, she said, but the books always left questions unanswered. Every single question I had has been answered in this introduction course.
Oh, wow, that's powerful.
So some people learn the meanings of the symbols of the zodiac. They learn the meanings of the shapes of the planets. But what I do is I show people how to be able to understand it without memorizing it.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
So we look at each symbol and deconstruct it, so that when you look at the symbol, instead of it being a random image that you have to remember, it actually has meaning. It speaks to you. So I don't study bits of charts and then look things up in books. I read astrology as if it's written in English text. So when I do a life reading for someone, I read a person's whole life story from their birth right through to an approximate age of 90. Their birth experience, their relationship with their mum and their dad, the language they heard as a child, how they do their washing up, what their dreams are like, everything, without looking up anything. I just look at this one single image that you can see behind you, and I can read a whole person's life just from that.
That's amazing.
And that's called reading. So you don't need to make notes to do that. You just need to understand the language. And it's really about a thing, I guess, of depth. So my introduction course is the prelude to a professional training, which lasts a long time. And that's because I do everything with great depth and thoroughness. That's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people just want to dip into a topic. The introduction course will do that. Other people want to get a quick idea of the different nuances of astrology, and that's it. That's enough for them. But I work with clients, and I have clients who have deep traumatic experiences, some of them, horrendous. And that means then that you need to have a profound understanding of the human condition with a great deal of patience as well. And you need patience to train with me. You're going to be at the coalface for a long time. And the reason for that is that the more you kind of explore a topic, the more of it comes to mind in an immediate sense when you're in a conversation. So if you're going to write a paper or an essay, you'll write, every paragraph will be concentrated and thought through. But if you're chatting in the kitchen, it isn't.
Right.
So the deeper you explore a subject, if you're called upon to just talk about something randomly, suddenly you've got all this breadth because you've got a broader vocabulary.
Wow.
And so that's the aim, is to teach you this topic so it becomes a language. And you can think in it. And it's a language that provides you with a structure or a framework for understanding the human condition. So instead of unconscious dynamics just being some kind of vague, amorphous thing, you can understand there are different layers. And these different layers and functions have their own particular mores about them. They have their own dynamics. When you look at a person's birth chart, for example, if you run yoga groups or meditation groups, you can literally look at a person's astrological chart and know in advance what kind of experiences they'll have during a meditation. And that can be useful if you're doing that kind of thing,
I was just going to ask you that, and you kind of touched on it, because I was going to say, what kind of people is the course for? But as you say, if there are people that are teachers, therapists, people who have genuine they're enthusiasts of this space of astrology and they're learning more about it.
I would say anyone who's got an interest in understanding the human condition.
That's really
because we are creatures of time and space.
Yes.
And you'll find through this course that there are different philosophies within astrology. So some people think that all astrologers think that planets influence us. You're going to hear me say on this course, planets do not influence you at all, right? And that's because in Hellenistic Greece, there was another philosophy about astrology that wasn't about influence, it was about correlation. So a very simple, quick metaphor is, imagine you're driving through a city that was completely new for you. You might have a sat-nav in your car. The sat-nav doesn't build the city. It doesn't build the buildings. The sat-nav just merely describes the territory that you're moving through. At the moment, anyway, the sat-nav doesn't drive the car. You do. You choose if you stop or go. You choose how you navigate that map. So the sat-nav correlates with the city, but it doesn't create it. Likewise, astrology correlates with your life, but it doesn't create your life. Who you are is a combination of your genes, your epigenetics, the socio-affective environment of your family home, the language that you heard, the figures of speech that went into your mind when you were a child, your exposure to media, to different people as you grew, teachers, education, friends, the experiences you have. All of these things kind of coalesce into a sense of self in the present moment. Astrology doesn't make that happen. All it does is describe it. And if you know how to read this language with great accurate and articulate detail.
That's fantastic. And so for people who want to get onto this course, obviously I'm going to put your link on there and there's more detail for them on it. How long do you say this course actually runs for, this particular introduction to dynamics of astrology?
It's 18 weeks.
18 weeks. So yeah. I know I've got one of your main sites for people to actually learn more, because I think anybody that's listening into this call, you can already see we've just touching on the very basic bits here just of what's going to be covered, and there's a lot of depth to the work that David actually does. And for those that want to get onto David's website just to learn a little bit about his background, his interests and other things that he covers, his website is www.rowan, that's ROWAN -astrology.com. So you know, just reach out. But what we will do is in this video, we're gonna put a link so that you can actually find out the link on the information about the actual course, and then any further information, there'll be an email for you to reach out to David and ask him anything that you want. But David, I mean, I'm just excited to get jumping on this course for a start, right? And I know a few of my friends that are into this space. It's, you know, education is empowerment for us when we take action with it in what we do. And you know, applied knowledge is powerful, as they say. But this area is something that people really haven't got to even just an intro peekaboo into it, but that in itself enlightens our headspace to learn people and the space in where we are moving around with. So just on a final note on this particular course that we're doing, any final things you would like to just get a message to people listening in of why they should be here doing this, and what is it, what it's going to mean to them?
Yeah, okay. Most people have an encounter with astrology through media columns that say you're a Taurus, you're a Gemini, you're a Cancer. You're going to find out through this that there is no such thing as a person who's a Taurus or a Gemini or a Cancer. If you go to the Natural History Museum and you look at the annals of zoology and genealogy, there's no reference to a creature called a Taurus or a Gemini or a Libra, right? That's because they don't exist, right? But what the media tend to do is look at one part of an astrological chart, the sun, and say that that's what you are, which is to the detriment of all the other bits of information that's in there. So all human skills have a range of competence, you know, from mastery at one end to please stop at the other end, with a sort of mediocrity sort of in the middle. So you can liken, if you use music as a scale of sophistication, media horoscopes are like the X Factor or the American Idol of the astrological world, whereas, you know, what I do with people is the Beethoven end, and there's probably a Led Zeppelin kind of area in the middle as well. So what people will find is that the mumbo jumbo and the hocus pocus that's kind of talked about with astrology can be repositioned. You'll also find out why that mumbo jumbo thing is so prevalent as well, and the reason that the deeper end of astrology is never discussed on television, for example. It's actually illegal for the BBC to do that.
Oh wow, really? Oh
yes, and
gosh.
It's all down to Napoleon.
Oh.
And there's a mystery for right?
There's so much, I can see so much coming from this. But that's really interesting in just those couple of sentences that you just said. Is again, it's a misconception for people where they are, how they see it. So this is going to be enlightening them a lot, and I would encourage anybody that's actually listening to this little interview right now with David. I just got to say to you guys, you know, it's time to do a few different things, which is educate yourself a little bit better and empower yourself to move through the space even better. And I'm sure that when you get to understand the personality of David more as he goes through his teaching, it's actually really very enlightening and uplifting and quite funny. Actually, he's quite comical guy because he has totally had us in tucks of laughter with his way of teaching, which is lovely because it's also nice when the teacher is a fun person to learn with, and we like that. So David, thank you for sharing this part on this particular course, and we would hope to get a lot of people, and they can get onto that link that we're going to put for them. They can register, find out more about it, reach out to you, and then no doubt they will see you on the virtual space on that course, and you will do the teaching, right?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for your time, and thank you, whoever is watching this, for giving this much interest. And yes, there's a whole world beyond the world that you know, and it'll be a great pleasure to be able to guide you through this maze of reality.
Well, thank you so much, David. That's David Charles Rowan. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on the course. I'm very excited myself. Until then, take care.